Hi everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Today we are going to make a pan-seared tilapia with a tomato herb rice and some roasted veggies, and we're going to bake up our sourdough rolls. So let's start by chopping up our onion. We're actually going to use the smaller one, and this is going to be for our rice. We want to get it to start caramelizing. Then we're going to add in some canned diced tomatoes. We'll saute those up and then we'll add in our rice. Okay. So we're going to do kind of a small dice on these because, again, we don't want to eat it and just scream giant onion piece. So these are just like Valdalia onions, sweet onions. They're best for sauteing. There we go. And get this one sliced up as well. Yeah. We'll dice it. And then we're going to add a little bit of oil into our saucepan over here, which is where we're going to be cooking our rice. So I'm going to turn on my burner to about a 6. We're going to put in about 2 tablespoons of oil. So that's 1, 2. And we're going to let our onions kind of caramelize up and bring out their flavor. And this is going to be for our tomato herb rice that we're going to have with our pan-seared tilapia. And then we're going to roast up some veggies. So I'm going to prep our sweet potatoes so that they can go in the oven because these will take the longest out of our veggies. We're also going to have some green beans and onions. So I'm just going to do a kind of a quick peel on them. Get the skin off because sweet potato skins, in my opinion, are no good. I do know some people eat them, but I just find that they're very chewy and woody taste is the best that I can describe them. So we're just going to do a kind of a quick peel on here. So we got our first one peeled. And I always kind of chop off the bottom so I have like a good level surface to peel them on because you don't want them sliding. There we go. And then we're going to cube these into kind of like, I want to say, dice-sized pieces. And then we'll coat them in some olive oils and some herbs and have them start to roast up. Oh, forgot a little piece. And then we have one more because these are kind of small sweet potatoes here. But I will say oven roasted sweet potatoes done savory are one of my favorite. I love savory sweet potatoes. Again, I am a savory girl, a salty girl versus a sweet one. So no sweet potato casseroles in this house, just nice savory potatoes. Okay, let's get rid of these peels and then we're going to cube them up and toss them with some olive oil. There we go. Oh, lost one down there. Let's give our onions, before we get to that, a little stir. We're going to coat them up in that olive oil now that it's warmed up so that they all start to kind of saute up nicely. And try to keep all of my onions in the middle of my pan because that's where the heat is. And then we're going to cube these. So I'm going to cut each one into, I cut it into thirds and then into half. And then we'll just have our little cubes, trying to get them all about roughly the same size. So they'll all cook up fairly even. There we go. We'll flip and cut. And these are going to cook in our oven at 400 because we're going to be cooking our sourdough rolls at 400. So they'll be kind of like a slow and steady roast. And chop. There we go. And I'm going to grab my baking dish or my baking sheet over here. We're going to put our sweet potatoes in here. Then we're going to give them a nice drizzle of olive oil and then some garlic salt and some oregano. And then maybe a little bit of onion powder. Give it just a nice savory all around flavor for them. They're so delicious. And there we go. There's my olive oil. Just about, I want to say, a tablespoon. There isn't too many sweet potatoes here today. And We're going to give it a sprinkle of garlic salt, about a half a teaspoon. You don't need too much. And where's my onion powder? A little bit of onion powder, and probably about a fourth of a teaspoon. And then we're going to go about a teaspoon of oregano. So we're going to go heavy on the oregano. It'll taste delicious. So a nice little sprinkle here. And then we're just going to really coat all of our sweet potatoes in our oil here, or like herby oil mix. You want to make sure they all get coated up. This is going to help the sweet potatoes stay nice and tender. If you try to roast the sweet potatoes without covering them in oil, they'll really dry out, and then you'll have like a dry, chewy sweet potato versus a tender one with a crispy outside. Okay, I'll take some of that oil off, and we are going to pop these in the oven now. I have my oven again set to 400, and we're going to pop them in. I'm just going to shake them around, spread them out, because again, you don't want your sweet potatoes to really touch themselves. And I'm going to start these on the top, but when I add in my rolls, then we will move them down to the bottom. And then let's see, our onions are sauteing here. We're going to start our rolls in just a second. Rolls need about 15 to 20 minutes to bake, so I kind of want them to be done right around the end. So we're going to let our sweet potatoes cook up a little bit, and then we'll add them in.
Oh, you have a question? Do you ever do sweet potatoes in a crock pot?
I've never actually done sweet potatoes in a crock pot. I've done like the slow cooked in the oven where you covered it with aluminum foil. And I've done them like full ones in a Dutch oven oven, but I've never done it in a crock pot. But I bet you you leave them skin on, and then you can open them up, and I bet they're really soft and tender and moist in them. Okay, let's add a little bit of garlic to our onions over here. We're going to add aim for about a teaspoon. There we go. We're going to give this a nice little stir around. And let that nice garlic infuse into that oil with those onions. It smells so yummy. There we go. Okay, let's chop up, because this is going to be for our rice. So we're going to add in some green onions and some fresh parsley here. So these are my pre-washed herbs that always come out so nice and clean. So we've got we're going to do about 5 green onions here in that, because we really want that nice little onion flavor to come out in our rice. And then I'm going to pick up my big batch of my parsley here. I'm just going to give her a nice twist. I always try to just grab the leaves. And we're going to do a nice little mince on them. And this is going to just really make that rice really lovely and flavorful. I'm going to take out any big stalks, of course, because those will just end up being chewy. But we're just going to give this a nice mince over. And kind of fine. We'll add this in with our green onions to our mixture over there with some tomatoes. Then we'll add in our rice, and we'll let it start to steam and cook. There we go. And then I'm going to cut off the very tips of my onions, and then I'm going to cut the white parts up, and we're going to throw them in with our onions that are sauteing right now. That way they can start to get a little extra caramelization on them, versus the other parts are much better when you don't need as much sauteing on them. So we'll throw these in right now. Let them bring out their flavor. There we go. We'll give this a nice little toss. I'm going to turn it down to about a 3 now. Give it a nice little simmer. See, you've got our onions starting to really caramelize up, and that's going to bring out their really rich flavors, which you want to get done, because once we add our canned tomatoes, then none of these vegetables will have a chance to saute anymore. So we really want to get that out there going. Okay, now I'm going to slice up this remaining part, and we'll throw this in with the rice when we add that in there. There we go. Get these last little ones. And just a few little chops over. Okay. let's add in our spices for our rice, and then we will add in our tomatoes. So we're going to add in some oregano. We're going to add in about a teaspoon. So we'll shake it all around. And then we're going to add in some garlic salt, about a teaspoon. And a little bit of paprika. This is going to help with give it a nice rich red color along with the tomatoes. We're going to add in about a teaspoon. We're going to give this a nice stir and kind of let it heat up and infuse into that olive oil. It will let out that more of that flavor first before we dilute it with the tomatoes and then some chicken broth. But you want to always let it heat up in that oil. Really makes it more aromatic. And there we go. Okay. Now we're going to add in just 1 can of diced tomatoes, whole juice and all. Make sure we get all that goodness out. And we're going to make sure you scrape up the bottom of your pan because you want to get all of that good flavor out, kind of like you're deglazing it. Okay. Now we have 2 cups of rice. We're going to rinse it, just get some of that starchiness out. So I'm just going to pour it in my fine mesh strainer here. We'll give it a good rinse. This is going to leave you with a kind of cleaner, smoother rice product at the end. It just makes it better, gets rid of some of those like chemicals that can be left on it through the processing part. But again, it always brings out a nicer flavor and texture to the rice. So it's kind of really nice to do that. And you don't have to do it forever.
You got a question? What kind of flavor does paprika have?
Paprika is a really like mild, like sweet pepper flavor. So it's very lovely. It's very mild.
It adds red.
Yes, it really does. I always say it's a good food coloring. It has a very mild flavor, but it gives a beautiful color. And it's really nice. It's used in a lot of Hungarian dishes, just nice savory ones. It has a lovely flavor, but it is very mild, so it doesn't really stand out much. But like in fried chicken, it will add just a lovely coloring to a golden color to your fried chicken. But it's just lovely. Okay, we've got it kind of mixed up into our kind of tomatoes here. And we had 2 cups of our rice in here. So now we're going to add in about 3 cups of water, and then we're going to add a big scoop of chicken bouillon. Okay. And we've got our chicken bouillon. You could use straight up chicken broth if you wanted, but I feel like you can get a bit more flavor with the chicken bouillon. We're going to just end up using the rest of this. There, I always buy this stuff. I love it. It has so much flavor to it. It adds, and it's great for like making your own flavored rices. I'm going to get a paper towel. I kind of over stirred there for a second. Dab this up. And then once this comes to a boil, I'm going to bring it up to high. Then we will put the lid on, turn it down low, and let it simmer. And then it will just kind of be a really lovely tomato herb rice. And just, kind of like a Spanish rice. Just has just a lovely flavor to it. That will go great with our tilapia. Okay. Just want to make sure I've got that bouillon mixed into it. I'll give it a little taste. Perfect. Really light, subtle, but delicious flavor. Okay, let's get our rolls in the oven. These are our sourdough hybrid rolls. They used about a half a teaspoon of yeast in them, but they are primarily sourdough. So they have been rising for like 6 hours. We prepped them up earlier. We're going to give them a nice coat of butter, which will give them a good rich brown crust on them. Otherwise, they'll end up with kind of like a blonde look. And I always like my rolls to have a nice rich brown color. There we go. And then we save a little bit of this butter because we'll brush them when they come out. We're going to pop these in our oven at 400 degrees, and these are going to bake for about 15 minutes. And these are one of my family's favorite rolls. So when I remember to make them at lunchtime, because they do take a long time to rise since they are based on sourdough, I'll make them at lunchtime because they do take a long time to rise since they are based on sourdough. I'll make them, and a great flavor that isn't overpowering, like, sourdoughy. I'm going to put my timer for 15 minutes.
Do you have a question? Are you frying the tilapia?
I am. I'm going to do a kind of a dry rub seasoning on them, and then we'll pan fry them up. Let me add in my herbs over here real quick to our tomatoes and our rice. I want to add them in right at the end. All of that is going to add just some really great flavor to it. Let's give it a nice stir. We've already got a small boil going on there. And we'll mix it up. And it will just be really, really lovely. And just kind of jazzes up your rice. And I'm using like Jasmine rice, which is, I really like Jasmine basmati. I think they're a little bit more expensive than the regular rice, but I think they have a nicer texture. Okay, I'm going to turn this down to low. And we are going to put our lid on. And we will let this simmer. Just like if you were to cook regular rice. Okay, let's get our tilapia seasoned up, and then we can get our onion. We'll put this aside. We'll get our green beans and onions in the oven to roast as well. But those only take a few minutes to roast up. They don't take as long. So let's get our spices ready, and then we will, let me open this up, spread them out that way. But I always like to have all my spices prepped and ready so that I can just have one hand touching the fish and one hand doing our spices. That prevents me from having to go wash my hands every 5 seconds. So we're going to use oregano, parsley, some onion powder, some Mrs. Dash's table blend, which is just like an everything seasoning, garlic salt, and a little bit of Old Bay, which is really just a seasoned salt and some pepper. Don't be afraid to use spices. I always say that. It adds a big flavor complexity, and it just makes our thing lovely. So let me spread out our tilapia fillets here. That way we can go over and get them coated with the seasonings, and then we'll flip them over. So I always coat both sides with spices. That way they are well seasoned. Because once you start and do your pan fry, really the only spice you can add after that is salt, and that's just not as fun. Okay, we're going to do a nice light sprinkle of garlic salt. You don't need to go too heavy on it because we'll also be using Old Bay, which has salt in as well as some other great spices that really pair well with seafood. So give a nice little sprinkle over. And then we're going to do a little bit of onion powder, which will give it a nice kind of savory flavor to it. And oregano. And I will say, if you're new to spices, oregano is a great spice to start with. It's mild, but delicious. It's really fragrant when you eat it, but it's not super overpowering. And it works with so many different foods. So we've got our oregano, dried parsley, which is mainly to give it a kind of nice, pretty green flaking on it. Parsley, I will say, is one of those spices that outside of eating it fresh, it has no flavor. There we go. And then a little bit of black pepper. And then we will flip over and do our spices on the other side. So we have it nice, lovely, and seasoned, which you want. And it's going to really like bring out those flavors. But again, make sure you season both sides. Now, if you're using a fish that doesn't have that has a skin on it, of course, you can only season one side. But make sure you just season it well.
You got a question. What's your favorite seasonings for salmon?
For salmon, I really love like either a lemon dill or sometimes I do what I call like a cowboy seasoning on a salmon, which uses cumin and paprika, garlic, salt, black pepper, and I'm blanking on one, oregano. I love that mixture. It just works really well on a on salmon. We actually had it when we went on a cruise with our family to Alaska a couple of years ago. Teddy was one at the time, so about 3 years ago, and we had the best salmon there. And I asked the chef because we did like this taste of Alaska experience, and he like told me his little secret, and it was so good. A little shaky shake, and we're gonna do our oregano. That's why I say you might feel like, oh, that's so much seasoning. Trust me, when you have it on there and it's fried up, it's not going to be overpowering, but it's going to be absolutely delicious. And perfect. Nice shake over. Okay, we've got our season up. I'm going to wash my hands now. Beautiful, but this is going to be so yummy. And that seasoning just adds to the fish, especially with tilapia. Tilapia is a pretty blank slate. It just takes on whatever flavor you have. It's not an overly fishy fish, so it really marries well to whatever spices you want. So let's start warming up our oil to kind of sear our fish. You just want a nice kind of thin layer on here. On the bottom of your pan. That way it will crisp up and you won't have to stick. I'm going to start it heating up. You always want to wait until it's nice and hot. And while that is heating up, we are going to get our green beans ready. There's my knife. So we're just going to roast some green beans and onions, which will just be one of our vegetables with tonight, which will be lovely. Pairs well with the rice and the fish. And I just love oven roasted green beans and onions. It's the only way I like them. Don't give me steamed green beans. They're just not as good. I know, I feel like so many people get stuck in like just a steamed vegetable, but roasting veggies can just add so much flavor. You can add so many more seasonings to them, and they're just lovely. Let me grab our tray over here. And if you're like, you grew up like me, like a 90s kid, everything was like, all 90s kids, I think, hate veggies because their veggies they grew up with were either out of a can or frozen vegetables, and they weren't good. They weren't seasoned and anything. I'm going to put our green beans in here. These are French green beans, which are a little bit longer and thinner, but they will be lovely. I'm going to spread them around and break this apart. I will say, buying them prepackaged like this is so much easier. We used to get CSA, like a crop share from our farmer's market, and I'd get a big, huge bag of green beans in it, and you would just have to like snap them and clean them and do all this hard work, which is awful. We're going to give a nice little dredge of olive oil over here. You want about a tablespoon, probably 2 because we have a good amount here. And then we're going to do a good coating of garlic salt. And there we go. And then black pepper. You want the black pepper. We're going to shake it on. And then we're going to do a nice little toss, and then we're going to throw these in the oven, and we're going to let them really roast up. There we go. Just make sure you coat everything. I'm going to give my hands a quick wash, and then we're going to throw these in the oven. We can sneak a peek at our sourdough rolls that are cooking up right now. Okay, so these will just pop in there at 400 as well. And then I'm just going to slide them in right next to the rolls on the top shelf. That way they'll kind of cook up nicely. You can see our rolls with their nice little butter crust. Those are our sourdough rolls. We've got our sweet potatoes roasting underneath. And those are going to get a nice kind of golden color for them. And then we're going to test our oil out and see if it is nice and hot. So I always do my little drip test. Not quite yet. It didn't sizzle right away. So I know when it's hot is when you instantly drip it in and it sizzles, not like things. So it needs a minute or two. So let's let it warm up. It's going to pop now that there's water in it. So let's move. I'm going to move this right over here so we have a little bit more room for our frying.
You have a question, what's the seasoning on the fish?
So we actually used a big collection of it. So we've got some Mrs. Dash's like everything blend, oregano, Old Bay, garlic salt, parsley, and onion powder and black pepper. So we've got this whole barrage of spices in there. So it's got a nice coating on everything, and it's just going to have just all these lovely flavors. And our oil should be hot now because it's got a good bubble. We're going to add our first sets of filets in there. And it's always good when you put it in, you know your oil is hot when you get that instant sizzle. If you don't have that instant sizzle, then you're not going to get a good crispy edge on it. You're going to have more of a soggy fish.
Yeah, question. How long do the green beans cook?
They need like 10 minutes max. They cook up pretty fast. When I look at the rolls, I'll judge. I probably will need like 2 minutes after that, but then I'll know that they're ready. You guys want to make sure with your green beans that you don't overcook them because then they get mushy. You want them to be a vibrant green that will have that nice tender crisp to it. I'm going to flip this over here. I have this pineapple. I'm hoping it's still salvageable. Been meaning to cut it up for about 2 days now. And I was too excited about my watermelon. We'll get one of these to cut that instead of cutting it up yesterday when I should have, I waited. But I think it's still good. So we're going to cut off. Oh yeah, it's still good. I'll cut off my top here. You got my little mini base. You know, they say you can replant the top of the pineapple and it will start to grow a new like a bush. I think that's a wives' tale. So we're going to just kind of quarter it. And then I'm going to trim down. I save these because my toddler loves to chew on the core. And it's actually like really sweet. And it's really great on your gums. Apparently, pineapple, they say it has bromine in it, and it actually starts to digest you before you digest it. Just a fun fact. Fun, useless fact. Full of those. Okay, let's get our pineapple in here.
The chat says that's true about planting it, but it takes forever.
Okay, that's probably why. And most things don't last in my house. I like to pretend I have a green thumb. And I will say 1 year I had an amazing garden. Everything grew. It was 2020. And it was like, that was when I was a teacher and our work like closed down. So I was home with all of my kids at the time. And that was Evie, Torin, and Lena. And I was determined. I was like, we are going to do school. You guys are not getting a break off from this. And I planted my garden. I had them out helping. We were all so attentive to it. I grew like 40 pumpkins that year. My fig tree blossomed. Had so many tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, lettuces, kale. I have not recreated that since then. Every time I plant a garden, my tomatoes and cucumbers always do really well, my herbs. But anytime I try to do anything more crazy, it doesn't. I had strawberries that year, but those squirrels. I even had like 10 fake owls out there. The squirrels just kept eating my strawberries. It was very frustrating. I was like, oh, we can't pick that strawberry yet. It needs another day. And then it would be gone. Evil squirrels. You know, it's funny. I used to always like tell my mom, I'm like, you feed your squirrels too much. They're going to be so fat. They're not going to be able to live and thrive on their own. And then she's like, oh, no, they're fine. And then her squirrels got into her car and ate the wiring. It was actually my car that I was lending her. Ate the wiring of the car twice. And it was big deal. So I'm like, maybe stop feeding those squirrels. Okay, let's see. You think they need maybe a minute more? I'm waiting for a nice kind of golden crisp around the edge of mine. Then we'll flip it. We're going to use a fish spatula. If you cook a lot of fish, get one of these. It's long and thin, and it slides perfectly for flipping your delicate fish. And it's also really great for removing that skin. It's also good for grilled cheeses. Okay, I'm going to turn this down a smidge while we go grab our rolls, and we will check on our green beans and our sweet potatoes. Do I just have one? Aha. Okay. Let me give my rolls a touch. Actually, they're nice and firm, so they're pretty good. Look at our lovely golden ones. I'm going to leave my green beans in for about 2 more minutes. They're at a starting point of a vibrant green, but they are not completely vibrant, like a disco vibrant. Think about it. So let me put my sourdough rolls over here. We've got a nice thing. We're going to coat them with more of our butter. If you put honey in your butter, it will give them a dark brown color versus just straight up. Or you could do an egg wash, but they have a nice little golden. These are going to break apart. They're going to be lovely. They're sourdough rolls. They kind of all like rose into each other. I guess I didn't give them enough space to move apart, but still good. Okay. Let's flip our thing. So I'm going to go under with my spatula here. We'll flip it. Ooh, big splash. We'll do it. There we go. They are sliding away from me. And there we go. Oh, beautiful. I love that one when they get that really great golden brown on them. Oh, that's going to have such a good crisp. I'm going to rotate my pan because this edge is cooking a little hotter. Perfect. Sit right there. While we wait, we're going to make a nice little sauce for our fish to go on it. Let me clear a viewing path here. We're going to use some half and half. Normally I would use cream, but they did not have any cream at the store. This will work. It will be a little bit more runny than if I were to use straight cream. We're going to squeeze in the juice of a lemon. Let me grab a small knife. And I pull on my many cutting boards. A lemon cutting board for a lemon. Slide those back in. 1 second, my cutting board slid out. And I'm back. Okay. So we're going to use the juice. I'm going to probably use both sides of it because I do want it to kind of curdle up. So we're going to put the lemon juice in the half and half. Cream works a little bit better, but should work anyways. And this is going to create a crème fraiche, which will be kind of like a lemon flavored sour cream base to our sauce. And then we're going to mince up some herbs. We're going to let it kind of sit there in those juices. You can already see a little bit of that curdling to begin with, and it'll make it extra creamy. And while we do that, I'm going to grab a plate because this batch is almost ready to come out. I'm going to put it on here. This centerpiece is a warming center, so I can turn it on. Let me put it on. There we go. So I have my warming center on, which will keep my plate hot. This is a ceramic plate, so don't just use any type of plate. You want something that is oven available to work on your warming center, or you could shatter it, but these plates can go in the oven. And we're going to move our, let's see. Yes, these are beautiful. So we're going to move our tilapia over here. There we go. And then we'll put our next set in. We've got our nice pan seared tilapia with a nice thick herby crust on it. And then we're going to get our second layer of tilapia in. Let me grab a different spatula to move them in. I'll put them right in there on that oil. I will free up some room over here. There we go. And let's get these guys out of the way. Give my hands a quick rinse. Okay. We are going to add some fresh parsley and some green onions to our cream fraiche, as well as some onion powder and some garlic salt. And then we'll give you just a really fresh herby cream sauce that just kind of cuts through the seasoning of the fish. And you don't have to do it, but my daughter, my oldest one, she is always loving for a, where did my knife, there it goes, a sauce. Everything I make, she's like, where's the sauce? Where's the gravy? Get that pineapple off. So I now always make, anytime I have a protein, it's got to have a sauce or a gravy or garlic or an herby butter on it. If there's not one, she was like, what? No sauce? And I'm like, I know, end of the world. These are definitely first world problems. There we go. We're going to do a nice mince on here. You know, it's really funny is she's like me. She's like a saucy girl, I guess. We like our sauces. My husband is the exact opposite. He does not like sauces. He does not like his food to like mix or touch. And same with my son. He'll do a gravy sometimes, but most of the time he does not like a sauce unless it's Chick-fil-A sauce. And then that boy could eat his weight in Chick-fil-A sauce. Okay. They are all sticking to me. Turn that up a smidge. We're going to add in some green onions. These are pretty big green onions. So I think we're only going to use one because I feel like this is more like a spring onion than a green onion. We're going to mince these up. I'm going to take off a little bit more. And we'll add this into our cream fraiche. And I will say that lemon just is so bright in here that it goes really well with the fresh onion flavor. So it's going to be a really bright sauce that you can add on to it. A little bit different. A lot of times I'll do like a dill sauce, but this is almost going to be kind of like a lemony ranch.
You have a question? If you could only pick one meal to eat, what would it be?
Oh, well, I don't know. For me, it'd probably be a pasta because I love pasta. But if you were to ask any of my kids, they would say steak, and steak again. But I would do pasta. Okay, we've got our lovely fresh green onions in there. We're going to add in a smidge of some fresh or garlic. I always say fresh, but it's not truly fresh. But it's better than mincing it your own.
You got about 10 less used from the
top. Oh, thank you.
I guess I don't say anything.
Sounds about right. There we go. You got to say gazoo tight. That's what I say. There we go. So we've got it mixed. So it is definitely thickened up, not as much as cream. Cream will give you a much thicker one, but this will still be lovely on it. We're going to add a little bit of garlic salt, and then we're going to grab our green beans and our sweet potatoes out of the oven. We're going to add about a teaspoon, not even a half a teaspoon. Okay, we'll let that sit. Let it thicken. Let's go grab those veggies because we are getting close to being ready with dinner. Okay, let's grab some trivets. Beautiful. Last one. Okay, we've got our green beans on top. I'm gonna grab these first. You can see they've got a nice, still bright green color to them. Once they go yellow or brown, you've overcooked them, but these still have a lovely green color. And then I'm gonna grab my sweet potatoes. And we've got our roasted sweet potatoes as well. And to add to it, we're running out of space over here. Let me grab this melted butter off. But here, this is our like oregano, garlic, and pepper roasted sweet potatoes, a nice savory one with our garlic, black pepper, onion roasted, green onion or green beans. See if we need to add anything else to it. Perfect, very lemony, but delicious. It'll be really bright on our sauce. Let me see how these are cooking up. Oh, that one looks good. And there we go. Okay. Turn that up a smidge. Let's do our reveal. It's a little hot. Let me grab my thing. This is our beautiful tomato herb rice with tomatoes, green onions, parsley, regular onions, just our spices, chicken bouillon. We gotta give it a nice stir around. But this will be so good. It has so much flavor in it. So it's kind of like I say, like a Spanish rice, but it's even better. And it's cooked in that, like you've got that lovely coloring from both the paprika and the tomato juice. And it's just gorgeous. But let's get ready to serve up. Okay, let me grab a plate here. And we will start with our veggies. Grab some tongs. We'll need those. So we've got our roasted sweet potatoes, which is mainly for me and the little ones. We like these the best, and my parents. My older 3 kids are crazy, and my husband for not liking them. Got our green beans. These are roasted with garlic, salt, olive oil, black pepper, and our delicious tomato herbed rice. Beautiful. Let me put this plate down. We're going to put our tilapia on. This is our herb crusted tilapia. Look, lots of piece. And then let me pull up one of our sourdough. Look at that pillowy, soft sourdough roll. It's going to be excellent. And then, of course, we can't forget a drizzle of our lemony herb cream sauce, like cream fresh on it. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here for dinner today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, show you what I'm making for our family, hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Got a question?
You have a quick question. Are the recipes posted anywhere?
We upload all of our videos to the link on our page. So if you ever want to recreate these meals, you could just find that video, start from the beginning, and just cook along with me. And then hopefully that gets you to have a great meal at home as well. Occasionally we do post recipe cards, but most of the time it's just we upload our videos. But again, thank you guys so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to